So I'd like to really thank David and his team for their stellar efforts this year. The API, if I had to summarise in one sentence, the API is in a very stable and sound financial position, despite it being another very, very challenging year due to a number of internal and external factors. During this time, David has actually managed 100% changeover in operational staff, and he's managed this transition seamlessly, and which has allowed continued operation and focus of the API on the breadth of programs and initiatives aimed at addressing the professional skills needed in power engineering and future-proofing Australia's power engineering capability. So due to COVID, new COVID variants, very topical, border restrictions, the summer school had to be postponed twice, and we acknowledge that this is a great administrative burden and appreciate David and his team responding to these challenges quite agile with agility while managing business as usual operations of the API. I also wanted to highlight that one of David's successes is securing a government grant, significant government grant for the Powerful Women's program, which David will no doubt mention in his report. So I just wanted to take a brief step back and think about more broadly the circumstances that are surrounding us. And over the last year or so, we've definitely seen an acceleration in climate action. We've seen our state governments stepping up, setting and legislating targets for net zero emissions, and many corporations announcing their own net zero emissions pledges. So the need to decarbonise rapidly is at the forefront of many organisations, and the energy transition is well and truly underway. Throw the pandemic into the mix, limited international travel, foreign students entering Australia, there is a finite resource pool. This is putting an increase in pressure on many businesses in Australia, and the war on talent is very real, along with the Great Resignation, both very real challenges that no doubt many of our businesses are facing. As a result of this landscape and the VUCA world that we're living in, the API is needed now more than ever, and the API has a very important role to play to support our member organisations with the challenges that they are facing and getting access to the right skills that are needed to transform and sustain Australia's energy future. So with this context in mind, the board has been focused on developing a strategy for the API, and this has been developed in response to the significant changes occurring internally and externally to the API, as well as the expiration of our current 2017 to 2021 plan. So following a two-stage strategic review, the API board identified the following 5 key themes which will influence and shape our long-term or our Horizon 3 strategy. And these theme areas are quite interlinked and very important in shaping the future of the API. The first one was around theme 1, around defining the API boundary. Is it just the power sector, or do we move beyond that? Obviously, the API has been very focused on power engineering, but there's definitely increasing interest as the energy sector transforms, and does the API need to revisit the boundary of where it operates? The second theme is around the workforce development and skills for the future. I mean, the skills needed for the future of the power industry will certainly be different to today. So how do we get ahead and be prepared for what industry needs? And with other organisations very active in this space, like Race for 2030 CRC, we need to work out what our API's unique contribution is. Theme number 3 is based on the war on talent. And something that I mentioned earlier, there's definitely a shortage of resources and a war on talent, which is only going to continue to grow. So how do we help address the shortage and support our members during this time? Theme number 4 is based around diversity. We do know that there is a lack of diversity in this sector, and we can expect organisations demanding greater diversity from the API and support for attracting and retaining a diverse workforce. And finally, theme number 5, which is very much linked to theme 1, is all around our members. How many, levels, benefits, and how does that align with theme 1 in terms of our boundaries? So I'm very much looking forward to working with the board in addressing the above matters. And before I hand over to David for his report, I'd like to encourage all members to consider their involvement with the API through our LinkedIn and social media, and our increased level of engagement across the sector and raising awareness of the work done by the API team. I would like to thank David and his team once again for their amazing efforts this year in what no doubt has been another challenging year. And I would also like to thank my fellow directors and all of the members for their ongoing support and contribution to the API. Over to you, David.
Thanks, Heidi. Great. So hello, everyone. Look, this is a picture of me actually being somewhere live in person in Perth last week at the Econ conference, and that was wonderful, but it certainly has been a very interesting year, if not 2 years. So I just want to show you some of the things that we have achieved, because we've actually got a lot done, but also quite a lot different than what we might have been doing previously. So as an overall assessment, I'd say we've actually got a high achievement level against our goals and our overall mission of the workforce. And we've also had some good success in our short-term sort of Horizon 1 strategic planning efforts. There have been profound changes in our operations. Heidi mentioned 100% staff turnover, but we've changed so much of how we go about things. And I would say that, you know, COVID's been really tough, but in reality, it's actually been a net positive for us. It's prompted us to change how we do things. That it gives us some of our strength is that we are a national organisation for workforce. So we've been prompted to do things that are a bit more national, and overall our capability and your capability to do things online is much stronger. So, you know, overall we've been forced to change, and I think it's put us in a really fantastic position. And as Heidi says, look, it's our time to shine. I was reflecting at the Econ conference about how, you know, there's no other sector really that I know of that has such a targeted organisation focused on workforce development, and the foresight of some of you and your predecessors 15 years ago to set up the API. We're in an amazingly positive position right now, and it's the time for us to shine because the sector needs us very much. So we're in a great position, but we're in that position because of a lot of hard work by a lot of you. So the board, for example, has met every 6 weeks effectively for the last year. So that's a lot of board meetings. That's a lot of decisions with not a lot of certainty or information on top of quite heavy other real day jobs as well. So I want to say thank you to the board, but also to the team, and also to the many of you who are with us and your staff and colleagues who contribute so much to what the API does, whether it's the bursary program or our innovation portfolio or supporting our students on placements. Our success is due all to you. So the things that I'm going to show you now, you're all part of making that happen. So thank you. But, you know, so big picture, I say we've had a lot of success in our overall mission, which is that developing the power sector workforce. We've done things a little bit differently than we were doing 2-3 years ago, but we've certainly hit some fantastic goals or home runs or whatever analogy you want to use in the last 12 months. We also developed about just under a year ago now, with the board, we developed some short-term strategic transformation objectives, and that's sort of 5 things. One was to provide more value to our members, to step up more as a leader in some of the key issues, whether it's promoting power sector careers or strategic workforce planning, and to strengthen the focus on power. So in things like women in engineering, that's going fantastically well, or not fantastic, but there's a lot of efforts on women in engineering. So we want to inject the power part into that, women in power engineering, etc. Huge changes in our operations and staff to be more efficient, more agile, more relevant to the changes that Heidi talked about. And the fifth one was really to engage. We've always been doing great things, but how do we share that so that we have more impact and so that you as our members can be more involved? So lots of changes in our engagement space as well. And on those 5 things, we're not done, but we've done really well across all 5 of those. Our team has changed. So Kendall, after 7 odd years, left us in June this year. That was, so that's quite a big change for the organisation to lose what was half of its staff, or just at the time, and a huge amount of corporate knowledge. And Kendall was fantastic in transitioning out in the middle of the bursary program. But we've also had Steph join us earlier this year in February, March. Michelle has come on in a slightly modified role of operations manager and looking after the summer school and the bursary program. And only last week we had Kirsten join us to be our project officer for our new women's leadership program called Powerful Women. So we've gone from 1.8 to a whopping 3.2 FTE, but we're a great team. And to put it in context, we have never met in person. So we're going through that whole forming a team and working out what we do. We're literally turning a bike into an aeroplane while we're riding along and never meeting in person to do it. So thank you to Michelle and Kirsten and Steph, and to Kendall in her absence, for your great efforts in what we're doing. To give you some of the highlights of what we are doing. So bursary program is absolutely what our members value. That's going really well. We've got currently 87 bursary students and 3 careers trackers interns in our program, and 34% female, which is a great level of penetration. Of course, they're all about our pipeline for you. So you can see we've got a healthy pipeline spread around the country and spread across the year groups. But we are going to be working with you to get a stronger forecast of how many students do we see needing over the next 1, 2, 3 years. And of course, it's very much about the graduates leaving our program and going into the workforce. So this year, we've completed 14 students have graduated. Some of those have left our program before they've left university because they've gone on to other opportunities. But from our perspective, it's still a success. We're nurturing these students through the program. So this year's cohort, 21% female. So you can see that we're lifting that gender diversity as we go through as well. And I suppose I just want to put some, the numbers are good, but these are real people who you have collectively supported to get inspired about a career in power, to do the study and to start that journey. So these are literally the faces of the people that we've assisted to become power engineering people this year. A key part of that development and inspiration is the vacation placements. And I've said it before, but I want to say it again. I was really proud of us as a community that last summer, in the middle of a pandemic, we still provided placements all around the country to 20 odd students. That's a real testament to your team and your organisation's commitment to this and the flexibility that everyone showed. So thank you. And we're really thrilled to have this year 34 students, and it would have been higher, but even as it is, we've got 34 students and a massive 44% of them are female, going into 17 organisations across Australia. So that's the API program right there having its impact. Going back to those strategic goals, we want to provide more value, more impact for our members. So a year ago, we tried a pilot and now we're implementing it, which is resources called the Learning Journal. that students work on over a summer placement with our members. So it's designed to help you as the host and the line manager actually provide a more impactful, more structured and nationally consistent program for students. It's aligned with some work I did with the Council of Engineering Deans a few years ago on what are best practices for work placements to achieve the learning outcomes that we want. So we're running that out this year. It's going quite well. And to give you an example in practice, it's got 5 goals and the students just work through different activities during their time with you. As an example, this one here is observe the functions of the major departments and sections of the organisation they're in, and to write a brief description of each. So they're really starting to get to know the power sector and the roles and opportunities, as well as doing meaningful work with you. This year, 2021, we also came up with a new way of engaging our students nationally in this national community, which was the Students in Power Summit, where they produced short 3 to 4 minute videos about the placement they did over the summer. So 20 odd videos, they're pretty amazing. And then we got everyone to look at the other videos and vote. And we had over 100 people participating in looking at the videos and attending this live online forum. And that's quite effective messaging of it, sort of peer-to-peer students talking about, I did a placement. Our winner was Jim Coates by voting from our judges, who went to Energy Queensland for a placement. So a great way of getting students to reflect on what they learned, but also to share that with the other bursary students and other students across the country, linking to our mission to inspire and develop. Again, because of COVID, we had to do things a bit differently in the other parts of our bursary program. And this year, we ran our first integrated national awards ceremony for new students. But we did it a bit differently and had a massive online networking session with about 100 people that we called Sparking Connections. And some of you here were part of that, and the feedback from everyone was great. And we want to thank again our 21 industry mentors who went on the Let's Take a Chance journey with us and see if we can run 20 simultaneous breakout rooms in teams, which I can tell you we can do. It's just a bit challenging to do, but we're learning and getting better, and overwhelming feedback that we will do these types of things several times next year. Some other changes were forced upon us. We have our TJ Effney scholarship, which is $20,000 for one student a year. We haven't been able to do that this year. We did have a webinar sharing the experience of Lachlan, the last student, but we're just going through the selection now. We're going to take about 23 of our bursary students from across Australia to the ENA conference that was meant to be end of this year. Now it will be in March next year, and that will have, I think that was around 30-something% female as well. So imagine the impact of 20 students going to the ENA conference. So lots of different things that we've had to work through, how to do and how to get the word out, and then how to deliver as dates change. Some other things, we've tried to continue our goal of using our bursary students to inspire high school students. Typically we'd be going out to high schools, but can't do that. So we pivoted to doing it online and having some online sessions linked to National Science Week and a few other activities. And we've also sponsored, so last week at the ESA conference, we sponsored 20-something students to join the conference using the online portal. And we have been doing some work with our solar car challenge, but unfortunately because of COVID and schools, there hasn't been teachers have quite fairly been very distracted. But what we did work on was a redevelopment of our day in the life teaching resources for primary school students, and we're getting ready to both work with your organisations to see what the appetite is to take that up, and to go and connect again with schools next year, pending the COVID situation evolving. And we've also been much more active in a social media space, featuring outcomes from our different events and activities. Heidi mentioned diversity being super important, and we've tried to turn that strategic pillar into some more definitive actions. As I said, our bursary program, 30% women, but we've also continued classic things like supporting the UQ Women in Engineering program, but also some new initiatives. So we've worked with the Clean Energy Council this year for their first ever diversity in the clean energy sector survey, which was quite effective. So we helped develop that survey and push it out. And I suppose our biggest win was in December last year. We applied for this crazy, almost $900,000 grant from the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, and we're successful. So we're now setting up our Powerful Women Leadership Program, which will have 65 women a year for the next 3 years, be involved in the summer school, and a new early career leadership program. So for me, that's a huge achievement, directly linked to some of our board members and some of your staff who helped pull the idea together, and now it's moving ahead quickly, ready to have people come to summer school next year. We've been looking at our role in providing leadership with data, so whether it's the Workforce Diversity Survey or finding other sources of data and commenting on that. And one of the really meaningful sessions for me was that of all the engineers in Australia, we know that engineering has poor gender diversity, but electrical engineering is the worst, at 5% penetration of women into engineering, electrical engineering in Australia. So it shows there's lots of work to do, but it also shows the value of us digging into the data and sharing. We have previously done things like workforce surveys of our members, and we're looking at doing that again next year. But first, we've looked at what's going on. So we've run some forums and captured some information on what strategic workforce projects are going on, and shared that with our members and other stakeholders earlier this year, a few months ago. And we were also co-leaders of the Race for 2030's 10-year research plan on what race will do in workforce planning. And you might have seen that out of that, there's a recommendation that a significant $2 million+ a year workforce survey be done every year or 2 years. And we were part of a joint message to Angus Taylor as Energy Minister, who had given positive indications that the Commonwealth would actually fund this survey. We actually haven't heard anything, so I think it got a bit caught up in the COP26 net zero politics and everything that's going on, but we are quietly optimistic because this is the plan for what race will do, and getting data is an absolute key part of moving forward. So we're still pressing that, but that's a big piece of work from the API behind the scenes. Summer school is our practical area where we really help develop that leadership part of the workforce. We've had to delay it several times, and it's now on track for April, May next year, and it will be a bumper crop with, we think, probably 50+ delegates, including our 15 scholarship holders from Powerful Women. And we're also going to have a big workforce forum as part of the end of summer school that I'll send out more details to you for, but continuing our workforce things. But a new addition this year was having 8 of our senior executives from our governor members provide some online information sessions that we called Executive Insights, and that's been quite effective, and we're continuing that next year and linking it into our Powerful Women program as well. And in the innovation space, we had success with the Race for 2030 CRC. We were part of getting that up, biggest ever CRC with $350 million. And then we've been doing pretty practical, simple things as well, like our different projects with Energy Networks Australia and making sure the knowledge from those projects is shared with the sector and with universities through webinars and things like that. So our innovation portfolio is going really well at the moment, and we're quite an effective catalyst in getting other projects up. An area where we're not doing so well, and it directly links to the fact that we haven't been able to get out and get around, but also that universities have been incredibly disrupted by COVID, is our goal of strengthening undergraduate education. So we've provided webinars and we're doing stuff with our bursary students, but I can say that, you know, look, I have concerns about what's happening in the university space, and there's a role for the API to step in there, but it's been so turbulent in the last 12 months. We did sponsor a panel as part of the Power Engineering Academic Conference a year ago, and I've reached out to the committee for what's happening with the next conference in Adelaide next year. But we have probably slipped a bit back, as not just the API, but the whole space. So I think there's an area for us to reinvigorate there. And it's a simple thing, but we've got a nice plan of events for 2020. And this is an important part of helping you and your teams actually be more involved in the things that the API is doing, so that we're much less reactive, because we've spent 2 years reacting, so now we've got a good understanding of how and what to do in this COVID world. So from our members' perspective, we've got a great spread. I'm keen to get out and connect with you directly when I can, so we can help you make the most of what you're doing. And we're planning to work with each of you to make sure that you know what's available, and we come up with a plan for how we do it together. So that's sort of the CEO's report on what we're doing. As you can see, lots has been going on. Most of it quite different to what we thought we'd be doing at the start of the year, but it's been a very effective year from my perspective.